All right, so let's talk about this fucking Rolling Stone article. What a really just terrible, shoddy piece of journalism. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not going to realize this because they don't know the truth. You know, the media has just totally dropped the ball and totally abdicated its responsibility to do real investigative journalism. And this article by Rolling Stone, I don't know why it surprises me that it sucks, but it did. It did kind of surprise me a bit. And I guess that's just because I talked to a number of people, a number of Manson supporters, who went on the record with Rolling Stone and gave very extensive interviews to them in a number of cases. You know, and I expected that based on that, and based on the fact that Rolling Stone at least said that they were going to try to do a real investigation. And, you know, also the fact that they were putting so much effort into doing another article on Manson, I thought, well, maybe they're gonna go with a different approach, because there's already been so many articles and so much news coverage. So I thought, well, maybe they're gonna really, I didn't think that it was gonna vindicate him or anything, but I thought maybe they're gonna really dig into the opposing view on this. And they didn't. People like Paul Weiss, Rob Holliday, Tim Skold, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Greta Aurora, Manson, and a number of other people gave interviews to Rolling Stone, statements to Rolling Stone, extensive statements that were very supportive of Manson, and that got into some detail about denying that Manson was abusive, or that they had any experience with that or had witnessed any of that. And instead, these extensive statements and extensive interviews that they did got whittled down to maybe two lines if they were lucky. You know, for instance, Paula Weiss. Paula Weiss has been on my channel before. She did an hour-long interview with me. Check it out if you haven't before. Former girlfriend of Marilyn Manson. She said on my channel that he was not abusive at all. It was the opposite. And she gave, I hope that she's okay with me speaking for her. She doesn't know that I am, but she told me that she was on the phone for hours with the Rolling Stone interviewer. And her, you know, multiple hours long interview gets whittled down to, what was it, one line in this expose, when this investigation gave so much space and so much time to the accusers, who really have been presenting this, you know, their stories now for months and months. So it wasn't like Rolling Stone was even presenting anything new in terms of what the accusers were saying, just a rehash of what they've already said. What would have been interesting, Rolling Stone, is if you had taken the opportunity here to actually use more of the material from the extensive interviews and statements that you got from Manson supporters and put that out there. That would have actually been bringing something significant and new to the table. Anyway, I did expect more, but I don't know why. And, you know, and again, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but something else that I was told by Paula is that she could tell. She said the interviewer was very nice and everything, but she could tell, she could see that anytime she said something, Paula said something vindicating toward Manson, that the interviewer seemed to lose enthusiasm, seemed to see it as a downer. It was, she said, and this was even before the interview came out. I talked with Paula on the phone one night, and I said, and this was after she had done the Rolling Stone interview, and I said, well, what's your read on how this is going to be? And she said, well, I don't have a great feeling about it. I'm hopeful, but I don't have a great feeling about it, because the interviewer seemed bored and discouraged whenever I would say vindicating things about Manson. That's not the story that the interviewers seemed to want. And then she also said the interviewers seemed really fixated on rape jokes, on asking her if Manson had ever told rape jokes in her presence and stuff like that. So, you know, again, weren't good signs. And then when that LA Times article came out last week, you know, like probably, or whenever that was, that should have been an indication. But yeah, this is a bullshit article. So I want to tell you, I'm going to get into it. But I just want to tell you what my issues are. First of all, it's so ridiculous, and it's so really basic level thinking, the way that the authors of this interview went to such lengths to examine Manson's art and his performance antics and the outrageous things that he has said over the course of his career. It went to this article just got all into the weeds with all of this, as if it's indicative of who he really was, who he really is. And that's just really simplistic thinking. I'm not saying that it's totally irrelevant, okay? I'm not saying that someone's performance, persona and all of that. I'm not saying that it doesn't mean anything. And I think Manson, you know, I don't know him, I've never talked to him, but I think he'd probably be the first to admit that, yeah, he's got his issues just like a number of us do. But from the interviews that I have done with people who have known him, some of them quite intimately, and from the investigation that I and others have done into the details of this and the accuser's statements and everything, it just seems very clear that whatever Manson's issues are, abusing women is not one of them. And it would have been nice if Rolling Stone had, you know, there is a lot of material now that people, yes, Manson fans and supporters, but that people have now been putting together, have been organizing, and a lot of it is online. You know, check out Stand By Your Manson on Instagram, for one. And yeah, I realize these are fan sites, but you know what? The fans are doing a better job than the media. And anyway, my point is, like, there are resources available. I've done a number of, like I said, interviews and stuff. And so this was almost a kind of a willfulness on Rolling Stone's part. They had a story that they wanted to tell. And they tried to go through the motions. We're going to go through the motions, and we're going to sort of pretend like we're giving, because we're doing this investigative journalism. And so if we're going to tout it as they are today, as a months-long, extensive journalistic investigation, then of course they knew that they had to give some attention to the other side. And so what they did is they just went through the motions of it. It was all performative. They went through the motions of interviewing people, and then Manson supporters, and then giving them one line here and there. Whatever. Rolling Stone has a really bad track record. I'll get into that in a moment. But anyway, the point that I wanted to make is that if you read this article, it spends a lot of time, a surprising amount of time, focusing on his artistic persona as indicative of something deeper. So it'll talk about how, one time at a concert, Manson hit a guy while performing. Well, you know what? Maybe that guy didn't appreciate it, and maybe that's not like the best behavior in the world, but it was a fucking Marilyn Manson concert, okay? And anybody who's on stage with Marilyn Manson and that whole thing, you can't tell me that because the people get knocked around sometimes at a concert, and here I'm not talking about Travis Scott, but I'm talking about as a part of, like, you know, just like that woman with the camera, that camera woman who sued him because she got a little bit of spittle on her camera. Because as a part of his act, there was spitting. They even had it on I saw a picture of one of the press passes, and there was something about spit on it. I mean, everybody like knew, okay? And so my point is, I just disregard anything, and the same thing that's connected to his performance art, or his persona. I disregard that as indicative of anything. All right. It is unfortunate for Marilyn Manson now that he did spend so much time and was able to so effectively put together this image of someone as, you know, as a Satanist, and someone who's completely counterculture, and someone who's dangerous, and someone who is on the edge, and someone who likes to press buttons and push boundaries and all of that. That worked for him for his career for many years. And I'm not saying he should regret it, but it is now it is now problematic because he's having to fight that image. And so many people are just basic level thinkers. And they're just like, oh, okay, well, he made a joke about raping women in a magazine, so I guess he must be a rapist. I mean, I don't know why. I actually shouldn't. I'm sorry. I apologize for using a kind of a Southern accent when I do that. I'm actually from the South, so that's sort of offensive. But anyway, I was trying to go for like a Homer Simpson thing. So maybe it's more, we're the Simpsons. Were they Midwestern? Well, anyway, I don't know what that accent was, but it's the accent of stupidity, and stupidity, thy name is Rolling Stone. So to quote a little Shakespeare there for you. I wonder if any of my Rolling Stones are any Shakespeare. Yeah. So, I have a problem with that. I have a problem that they kept bringing up the fucking book. Okay, we've already debunked that I mean, that's just been widely debunked. That book is full. First of all, it was ghostwritten by a guy who makes up stuff. It's good, you know, good writer or whatever, but it's the guy who wrote The Game. There's a lot of made up stuff, okay? And secondly, you know, multiple witnesses, even before all this Manson abuse controversy, multiple people who are mentioned in the book that Manson did. The Long Hard Road Out of Hell. I can't speak today. And I'm not gonna be able to edit it out because I'm really in a hurry. So you're just gonna have to put up with it. But I'm just really like, and you know, like I don't look very good. I know there's not much of a backdrop, but I don't care. I just wanted to get out this response. So anyway, my point is, after all those stupid disclaimers, my point is that the idea that book that Manson wrote, or that was actually ghost written for him, is a depiction of reality that's been debunked. Multiple people who are mentioned in the book have said, even before all this stuff, that this didn't happen, this didn't happen, this didn't happen. Okay, so I don't want to hear about the book anymore. But again, that's one of the main pillars that Rolling Stone is building this investigative journalism around. Also, I'm pretty sure, in fact, I am sure, and it would have been easy for your writers, Rolling Stone, to look into this, that Ashley Morgan Smithline's problem with anorexia, you know, did not start because of Marilyn Manson. And that's implied. That's basically what's laid out in the article. You know, she was not, she's had, it's very well documented. She's been to rehab for anorexia multiple times. The stuff was stuff that she posted publicly. I'm not sure if it's still up, but at one point you could even find a scathing review that she left of an anorexia clinic. She claimed that they were, you know, that everybody was against her there and she was abused. You know, noticing a correlation here. Anyway, she's had a long history with eating disorders and stuff. And so don't pin that on Manson. All right. I know it makes a nice story for you, but that's not accurate. And it wouldn't have taken, hardly any investigation for you to find that out. And I'll tell you another thing. I don't understand if we are going to dig into Manson's background and if we're going to drag up, oh, one time he made this rape joke or oh, one time he said the N-word or this or that. Why don't we also look at the accusers? You know, I do not understand the idea that when someone claims to be a victim of sexual assault, that therefore their credibility and their character is off the table. I know that back in the day, rape trials, you know, women, their credibility was maligned by defense attorneys focusing on their promiscuity and what kind of, you know, clothes did you wear and all of that. I get it, but, and yes, that's not good. But at the same time, when someone makes serious allegations against someone, that person's character is extremely pertinent. All right. The accuser's character, the accuser's backgrounds, these things are extremely pertinent. And so if you're gonna dig around in Manson's past, I would like to know, you know, how credible are these women? And let's look at their stories and let's look at how their stories line up with their histories and what they're alleging. You know, it's to quote The Crucible, one of my favorite works of literature. When the main character is falsely accused by a bunch of girls, girls and teenage girls. When the main character is falsely accused, he says, are they the accusers as pure as the driven snow? Were they born yesterday? Well, I would say the same thing about these accusers in this situation. All right. I wonder what we would dig up if we were to do an expose on them. And I'm not talking about promiscuity, but I'm saying, look, it means something when people are BDSM and fetish models. All right. It means something, you know, Sarah McNeely, is it McNelly or McNeely? She's one of the main ones interviewed in this article. It's documented online. She used to do at least these bondage back suspension shows where you have holes in your back and then there's hooks that go through the holes and you're suspended like by the muscle and the flesh in your back. I've never seen one before. But that was some of the modeling that she did. I'm sure she's done other things, but that was some of the modeling she was doing. Now, look, nothing against my fans and friends who are into BDSM and kinky sex and all of that. And it's great. All right. But at the same time, like, you can't tell me that it doesn't mean anything when someone has holes in their back and they allow themselves to be hanged up by hooks. I just, for the enjoyment of others. I don't, you know, I've got my own problems, sure. So I'm not saying that like I'm any better than anyone. I'm just trying to say it means something. And why does that not get mentioned in this article at all? I think that's a really like bizarre, very sort of obvious thing to note when you're describing someone, but they just call her a model. And look, you know, let me know if I'm off there or whatever. But I mean, I saw, and it's on some of my videos, I saw months ago, the advertisement that one of these BDSM clubs in LA had put up for Sarah McNeely. I think she was like on the cover of it, and it shows her with like hooks through her back and stuff. All of this stuff, you know, Rolling Stone could have found. And then Esme Bianco, you know, way before she met Manson, she was doing all this fetish and bondage stuff. And like, what about the fact that, and again, that doesn't mean that if you do that stuff that you're automatically a liar or that you're mentally ill or whatever. I'm just saying like, it's not meaningless. And why, if you're gonna make Manson seem like the fucking Prince of Darkness in this, and you're gonna look at his performance art as indicative of some kind of deeper sexual problem or psychosexual issue, well then, hey, I think that we have to do it on the other side. Okay? You know? Yeah, Manson burned Bibles on stage, and yeah, the accusers were, you know, a number of them were doing all this kinky stuff. Why not mention the fact that Evan Rachel Wood has had these really extreme about faces? You know, why not get into the fact that Evan Rachel Wood has had a number of very dramatic changes in her identity, in her life, and her sense of self? And which, you know, I'm not saying in and of itself is automatically suspicious, but she did a bunch of interviews back in the day when she was dating Manson, and even after, and even some as recently as up to like, what, 2014? Maybe 2016, she did a number of interviews where she praised him, and when she was with him, she was exulting in that kinky lifestyle, and she's, you know, and was excited to do a video with him where they're rolling around in blood or whatever. Go back and look at some of my other videos. I get more into this. I actually read excerpts from the interview. And then in these interviews with Rachel Wood, she talks about how safe their relationship is, how people would be shocked at how healthy it is. And he's the first person, Manson was the first person that she was ever allowed to be herself with, and was not controlled by, et cetera, et cetera. Does this just mean nothing automatically? Because again, if you're going to quote the book, the fictional BS book, but the book by Marilyn Manson, then let's quote some interviews that Evan Rachel Wood has done that are she's singing a dramatically different tune than she's singing now. And you know, nothing against bisexuals at all, but it is interesting when someone develops or has a big shift in sexuality. I'm not saying that, again, that is automatically indicative of any instability or something, but I'm just saying she's gone through, I mean, her look is completely different. She's this activist feminist now, you know, she's a completely different person. And that is not always the usual. It is not always usual that people have such extreme about faces in multiple ways. And again, I'm not saying that it automatically means that she's lying, and Rachel Wood. I'm just saying that, you know, you start to pile up some of this stuff. And I'll tell you something else. The accusers have been caught in multiple lies. Rolling Stone, why didn't you talk about that? All right. Esme Bianco saying that her Marilyn Manson scarred her back up, and she showed a picture of these deep scars that actually didn't look like whipping scars at all. They actually look like someone had been tied up with a rope, like she was tied up often on Game of Thrones. And even she even bragged about it on her Instagram and stuff, about how she was tied up and given fake, you know, markings and stuff on Game of Thrones. But anyway, my point is, she says all this stuff about her back, and she shows this picture of her back, although you can't see actually whose back it is because it's conveniently cut from the neck up. She shows a picture of a scarred up back that doesn't even look scarred up. It's just got like rope marks on it. But at any rate, she shows that as in one of the interviews a while back as indicative of the abuse that she suffered. Yeah, but then it's come out, and people have been telling me about this recently, and I need to do a video on it, a more in-depth video, but it's come out now, like pictures of her, you know, after she dated Manson, with a totally, in a strapless or backless dress, totally pristine back. No scars, no nothing. Ashley Morgan Smithline was trying to pass off stock Pinterest photos of bite marks as evidence of her own abuse. she denies that that's what she was doing, but you know, it was. Those of us who saw it, and those of us who are keeping up with it, yeah, she got these stock photos, these stock images from Pinterest of love bites, because she was trying to prove that Manson had bruised her, because that's what a lot of them say, is he liked to bite. And yet none of them can produce a picture. None of them have produced a picture of it. But anyway, these bruises, they're supposedly black and blue after all this biting has occurred. But anyway, Ashley Morgan Smithline posts on her Instagram story a picture of these bite marks, and then an eagle-eyed Manson fan discovers that it was just stock Pinterest photos, and so Ashley Morgan Smithline has to hurriedly yank them down and then deny what she was doing. You know, look, here's the thing too. This article, it shows, this Rolling Stone article, it shows a lot of pictures, sympathetic pictures of the accusers gazing out the window or looking intently into the camera. I have to say, you know, you look at the photo of Ashley Morgan Smithline, look, what she's done to her face, and I'm not trying to be catty right now because it's sad. She was, when I look at the older pictures of her, she was an attractive girl, and I guess, but now she's done some weird stuff to her face. Look at how, I mean, you know, look at photos of her years ago, and then I look at photos of her now and some of the plastic surgery and some of the stuff that she's doing. Again, that's not indicative of a totally healthy personality. And you know, and you can imagine if Marilyn Manson were doing all this fucked up shit to his face, to his mug, people would be saying something about it, you know. They love to with Michael Jackson. Anyway, where was I going with that? But anyway, all these sympathetic pictures, you know, and of the accusers in the Rolling Stone article, all these photo ops that Ashley Morgan Smithline was proudly touting on her page, because, hey, all this stuff is really just an excuse for more modeling work, right? I mean, her career was basically dead, and now she gets all of these photo ops for the LA Times hit piece on Manson, and the Rolling Stone hit piece on Manson, and the People magazine hit piece on Manson, but no, she doesn't want the publicity or whatever. She's just trying to protect future women from Manson's abuse. Anyway, look, and the article talks about tears and crying, and how, and when Esme, when they're interviewing Esme Bianco, you know, the tears well up or whatever. Some of you fuckers still do not know how easy it is to fake emotion. All right? And I just don't understand this idea that we just believe, I'm sorry to get like angry, but I am angry. Some of you just, you know, I guess that you don't want to, I guess it's kind of scary to acknowledge that a number of people, and often women, can be very adept at faking emotion. You know, I've done this on my show before when I was talking about the Cuomo thing, but let me just give you just a perfect example. Let's say that I was an accuser, all right? I'm an accuser doing an interview about Manson and how he abused me, all right? You know, like I trusted him. I was probably, I know I was probably naive because I was a fan. And I'd been a fan for a long time. And so I thought that when he invited me to his apartment, that it was going to be okay. I thought it was going to be okay. But it wasn't. See that? I was faking that the whole time. And that wasn't even rehearsed. That was just me, like, on the fly, deciding that I would fake some emotion. I'm not even feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. I'm not even feeling sad. And I could go in and out if I wanted to with that. I could go from this, I love you guys, to, I just don't know how I'm ever going to get past this. I just don't know. You know, it's not that hard, okay? And especially for people who have personality disorders of various kinds, which, God, I hope I don't have. But, you know, it's not that hard to fake emotion. I'm sorry. And so, especially these are actresses, or at least wannabe actresses. But I mean, Esme Bianco had a major role in Game of Thrones. She's an actress. You can see her fake cry. Go to HBO, look up Game of Thrones, click on one of those early episodes, and you can see her cry. You can also see her back with fake whip marks and stuff like that. So anyway, I have a problem with the focus on all of the emotion and all the pathos in this. Let's talk about actual, facts. And, you know, anyway, And I don't like the way that the article ends. The final paragraph of the article, it says that there were other people who declined, other people in Manson's orbit who declined to go on the record in an interview for mental health reasons. Now, it makes it sound like these are people who would have negative things to say about him, but actually when you read it very closely, it doesn't say that. It just says that there are people who in his orbit who declined to be interviewed. So in fact, it could very well be that there were a number of people with positive things to say, which I happen to know that there were people and are people with positive things to say, who are afraid for good reason to go on record. But then after it does that, then it gives Esme Bianco the final word in the same paragraph, after it just said that there are people who've declined to go on the record. And then Esme Bianco says something to paraphrase to the effect of, yeah, it's too bad. That's what happens, is there are so many people who know how awful Manson is, but they're too scared of him to go on the record. And so basically what it makes it sound like by giving her the last word there is it basically, again, reinforces the idea that, oh, there were all of these people that are afraid. Okay? When I think in reality, from the investigative work that I've done and that I've even been doing today behind the scenes, talking to people, calling people, and who are involved in this, it sounds like evidently there's a number of opportunists who never even knew Manson and just made up stories. And I can't validate that for you right now, but I'm doing some interviews and some calls and some real investigative journalism work. And I'm just telling you that there was, even beyond the accusers, there were other people mentioned in that Rolling Stone article who never knew Manson and claimed to, and it's made up BS. Look, how hard is it for you to understand that in this modern media-driven climate, there are a lot of people who are happy to lie and happy to make up shit to advance themselves, their career, whatever. And the fact that they believe that there's this narrative that's been provided that Manson is an abuser and a rapist, it makes it easier for people to lie and make up stuff, right? If I'm someone who wants some attention, then I don't feel so bad maybe about making up a story about Manson, because I think, well, there's already women accusing him of rape, and so I'm just helping. You know, it's so easy for human beings to lie to themselves. We all do it. And you know, so it's just all in all, it's a shoddy work of journalism, and you know what? Like I said, Rolling Stone, unfortunately, they have a legacy of that. There was that ridiculous, atrocious UVA article about the University of Virginia. Do you remember this? A couple of you have mentioned this to me online. And yeah, I remembered this as well. Several years ago, there was a huge expose in Rolling Stone magazine about a student there, a female student who at the University of Virginia, it's this long, extensive story about how she was raped, brutally raped, like something like Deliverance style, kind of, for those of you who get that movie reference, brutally raped. At a fraternity. And it caused a major shakeup at UVA. Fraternities suffered because of it, but also there was a dean, I believe a dean of students, who was fired or had to resign, and it gave UVA there was an extensive investigation and so on and so forth. And it turns out it was totally bullshit. She made it up. And Rolling Stone, if they bothered to do better investigative work, and if they had some sense of healthy doubt, just a basic sense of reasonable doubt about her story, to have investigated it more, they could have figured this out. They could have found this out before they published the story, but they didn't, and they didn't want to because they have an agenda, and that's what's going on here. And you know, kudos to Kanye West. He may be nutty as a fruitcake, but there's a real sanity there at the same time when it comes to this cancel culture and when it comes to Marilyn Manson. And kudos to him. And Kanye, if by some chance you're listening to me, I would love for you to come on my show. As primitive as it is, I could get a better setup if you were coming on, but I'd love to talk to you about cancel culture, Marilyn Manson, whatever. But kudos to you, Kanye, and to the handful of people who stood up for Manson and for the truth in that Rolling Stone article, and who do it on my channel and so forth. So I do believe the moral arc of the universe, it is long, but it bends towards justice, and I do believe that Manson will be vindicated sooner rather than later. So Manson supporters, keep up the fight, and Rolling Stone, shame on you. You are not the sharpest tool in the shed. Bye, everybody.